Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Heather, and on this channel we like to walk a very fine line between a shopping addicted makeup monster and a responsible adult with a makeup hobby. I really enjoy eyeshadow singles, palettes, duochromes, multichromes, blushes, highlights, gloss, basically everything but pressed glitter. And today we are going to be doing my April palette roundup. So this is all of the palettes that I tried in April. If that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me. We're getting into it right now. Alright you guys, and I'm going to try to film this as quick as I can because my eyes are literally tearing up and crying the makeup right off my face. Gotta love allergy season. So this month I tried out, I believe 7 different palettes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 7 palettes. Okay, so this month I tried out 7 different palettes, and I wanted to give you my opinion on those particular palettes, and I think it's fun to rank stuff, so we're doing it in a ranking kind of scenario. So the first one that I'll start with is the Loreal Sweetheart palette. This is the one that I've tried the most recently, and it came in my Tribe Beauty box. It looks like this. The color story is gorgeous. It's actually what I have on my eyes right now. My problem with this is 2 things. Number 1, the mattes are not very pigmented. So although they look nice and bold in the pan, when you actually try to put them on your eyes, they just don't give you a lot of color payoff and depth. So I feel like you can still see your lid through the shadows, and so that doesn't make it very nice to make looks out of. I'm gonna keep trying this. Maybe it'll, I'll grow to like it, whatever, but I just feel like I had to work harder than I should have for this palette. The shimmers I do think are really pretty. You can see the one that I have on my eyes right now is like this really pretty kind of duochrome. It's actually this shade right here that goes from like a pink to blue duochrome, which I do think is very nice. And then I have this Kiss Me shade on my lower lash line. What isn't cried off already? So I do like the palette. I like everything else in my month that I tried better than this one. Alright, the next one to talk about is the Nabla Secret palette. Now, I kind of put off purchasing this Nabla palette for a while because I have a bunch of their other palettes, and I was told in other people's review videos that this one was kind of like their least favorite. But I was so drawn to this palette, particularly this kind of like green-white iridescent shade, which I do think is very, very pretty. I'll swatch it here because I have no self-control. You can see. Oh, it's so pretty. And I did really like these kind of like almost linen type shades here. I thought those looked really pretty, that it was kind of like cool tones in here. You have some kind of greeny blue shades. I did really like the looks that I've put together with this palette, but again, I just like the other stuff that I used more than this palette, so this one ended up kind of like slipping in rank. Additionally, I don't tend to love like super neutral palettes, so I already knew going into this that this palette was not going to be like my most reached for palette, but I was still really drawn to it. When it went on sale half price at Ulta is when I ultimately decided to purchase it. So it was only $17, which I think is a much more reasonable price for this one for my collection. So overall, I'm not mad that I own it, and I do think it's good quality, but it's just not like the palette that I reached for the most this month. The next palette to talk about is the Colourpop Lalala palette. This is one that I held off on picking up for a while, and I'll hold it at kind of an angle because when I originally opened this palette to show it, this shade literally fell out onto my floor. So I'm going to hold it at an angle and hope for the best. I do really love these like vibrant pinky kind of shades, and I love that you have these 2 kind of softer pinks to be able to blend out the edges. This is a super shock shadow, so thankfully it was able to go back in and kind of get jammed in there. And I do think the shimmers look really nice in this palette. I'm really happy to have it in my collection, but it wasn't something that's like I'm reaching for it every single day kind of thing. I was going through a phase where I wanted all the pink eyeshadow, and then after like kind of Valentine's Day-ish, then I was like, okay, I'm good on pinks for a while, and then this kind of fell by the wayside while I was looking at other colors and, kind of diving into those other shades. So I did really enjoy playing with this palette. I'm happy to have it in my collection. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, but there's definitely other stuff that I liked even more than this month. The next one is the Makeup Maniac Cosmetics C'est La Vie palette, and this is a all matte palette with the exception of one shade, which is kind of like a satin matte or a satin metallic, and it looks like this. It is absolutely beautiful. I do have a video testing out this palette, so I'll put that video in the card so you guys can watch it if you're interested in. I really like the quality of this palette. I think pinks and purples are sometimes a bit tricky to formulate, so I really appreciated how nicely these worked for me, and how nice and deep and pigmented these shades are, especially this bottom row here. I think they did a great job on the formulation for this palette. I do have an affiliate code, I believe, for Makeup Maniac, so I'll leave that in the description box below as well. If you are interested in picking this palette up, you're more than welcome to use that code. If you don't want to use that code, that's okay. You don't have to. It's just there if you decide you want to use it, and thank you if you do decide to use it. Overall, I'm really happy with this palette. I do feel like this is a great companion palette for me to be able to incorporate some of my like special shades from like Cleona or JD Glow, things like where those like really special metallics. I think this shines as a companion to that. So that's why I was really interested in picking this palette up. So happy I picked it up. I would definitely be using this one some more. Okay. This next palette is actually a palette that I had wanted for a while, and I kept putting it off because people said it wasn't great quality. And then when I was finally like, you know what, I think I want this palette, like I think I want it regardless of the fact that some people are saying it's not great quality, because I still want to try it for myself. And by the time I had made that decision, the palette was no longer in stock anywhere. Like, I checked Beauty Bay, I checked the brand's website, I checked Ulta, I was checking eBay, I was checking Poshmark, Mercari, literally everywhere. Nobody had it. So I was like, okay, I guess this palette is done now. And it's several years old, so I understand. But that was the Nabla Soul Blooming palette. And as I was doing research to try to figure out, like, is there maybe a dupe or something that I could get instead, I came across this palette, which is the W7 Enchanted palette. Now, W7 is known for making like straight knockoff dupe palettes for other brands' palettes. And let me just pop the little brush out. It looks like this. So Nabla's format is, I believe, 3 rows of 4, and this one is more like an ABH kind of setup. But the shades that I was really drawn to: Ecstasy, Dreamy, Bliss, Trance, Blossom, and Captivated. Those were the shades in the original palette that I was like the most drawn to. And when I saw this one and I saw it swatched out, I was like, you know what, those seem like they actually might be pretty close. So I picked this up. It was $7, and I probably have done like 3 or 4 different looks with this palette, and I actually really enjoyed it. The quality is surprising for $7. I thought it was going to be like chalky and patchy and not very pigmented, and I thought the shimmers would fade on me, and I didn't experience any of those things. I felt like the shimmers did hold up pretty well. I mean, like, look at that. It's got great reflect. You can see this one. Great reflect. Like, this blue I thought was going to be trash. That's pretty decent. Like, I'm more impressed with this than I am with that Loreal palette that we started with. So I was really happy with this palette. I'm definitely happy I got to at least pick up the dupe, since I wasn't able to pick up the original. And I'm definitely going to keep playing with this one. This is just a joy to play with. So if you were looking for a dupe for that Soul Blooming palette, or if you had Soul Blooming and you didn't like the quality, maybe give this one a try. Maybe you'll like it better. I don't know. I don't have the original, so I can't speak to that. But I really like this one, and it made it to my top 3. Alright. Should we just should we just start the mocking now? The mocking can start now. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yep, it's my number 2 for the month. SpongeBob palette. I don't know either. So, you guys, I actually really like this SpongeBob palette. I played with this for like a solid week. Every single day I wore this to work, and then I wore it all weekend when I went with my husband and our kids on a trip. This is the only palette I packed. I love how versatile this palette is. You've got some greens, you've got some blues, you've definitely got some neutrals you can play with. I love that the deepest shades are not black, that you have brown and navy. I think that's awesome. This pop of orange is great because you can really take like an otherwise pretty boring neutral look and throw that orange in there to give it a little bit more interest. These 2 shimmery glittery shades are eye safe, which I think is amazing. And this shimmery shade up here is so reflective. It's like, beaming. It's beaming. It's awesome. And I love the shade for inner corner. It looks so flattering. I do have a video up on my channel reviewing this palette and showing you a couple looks I've done with this palette, so I will leave that information in the cards as well. But this definitely made it up to my number 2 spot, and I'm not mad about it, even though it's a SpongeBob palette. Like this whole SpongeBob part of it, I could take or leave. Like, I could take or leave. Yeah, I could take or leave. I don't care about this part. What I care about is the color story, and I think the color story is awesome. Number 2 for the month. Alright, and we'll end on a more serious, more glamorous note. My number 1 palette for this month is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. I have gone back and forth on this palette for probably almost 2 years, trying to decide if I wanted this palette or not. And I kept being like, Heather, you don't need it. It's $65. Like, you don't need a $65 palette. You never will need a $65 palette. And then I kept seeing people talking about this palette, and I kept seeing people doing looks with this palette, and I watched, prior to the Sephora sale this year, I watched probably 30 or more videos dedicated to this palette to try to decide, do I want this palette or not? And then finally it went on sale, and then was on sale for the Sephora VIP sale, and I was like, okay, I'm buying it, forget it, like, I need it. And I'm so happy I bought it. I actually really love this palette. Not only is it like a nice weight, so I feel like, you know, the extra spend kind of makes sense, but I really like the color story. I love the colors that they put together. I love the different finishes of these shimmery shades. I think they're very pretty. This teal is so vibrant and impactful. Like, I really enjoyed working with that teal. I love using this kind of plummy smoky shade for like deepening up the outer V. I think this is a really pretty and cohesive palette. I've definitely enjoyed using it, and of everything that I've used this month, this has definitely like risen all the way to the top. Okay, you guys, and so that is all of my palettes for this month. Definitely let me know in a comment down below, what are the palettes that you've been trying this month? What have you really been enjoying? Did you try any of these? Would you have put them in a different order? Let me know down in a comment below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!